Last April, I sat in a hospital room in Philadelphia with my wife, Shara, and my father-in-law, Ron Abraham. We were waiting for a certain doctor to arrive. Now, before I go on, I need you to understand something about my father-in-law. My father-in-law was kind of insane. The very first time I met the man, I put out my hand to shake his hand, and the man goosed me. Now, I'm not sure you all understand what it means to goose someone. Let me just say, it's not what you expect your girlfriend's father to do the first time you meet him. Ronnie was a character. He drove a little red Porsche. He loudly sucked on bones at restaurants. He asked friends and family questions that were wildly inappropriate. And he spent way too much money. He especially loved apes and orangutans, which, by the way, Jane Goodall was a hero to him, and we lost her today. He had statues and stuffed animals of apes and orangutans all over his house, and he would get in an ape costume and beat his chest just to make people laugh. Here's a photo of my father-in-law. Do we have it? Oh, there he is. Ronnie also loved his synagogue, which he and his wife Marcy helped to build in Bucks County, Pennsylvania in the 70s. He adored his family. But above all else, my father-in-law loved life. He lived it fully, he lived it completely, and he always encouraged others to do the same. By the time that Shara and I were sitting with him in that hospital room, Ronnie had already been through so much. Diagnosed with cancer in 2020, he had endured radiation and chemotherapy, immunology treatments, multiple surgeries that removed parts of his face. After years of fighting, he was now struggling to breathe. So we had reached another threshold in his journey. The doctor finally arrived. His name was Dr. Eric Goodlev, and he was Ronnie's palliative care doctor. Yes, the man's name is Dr. Goodlev. Lev, you might know in Hebrew, means heart. So this doctor's name, this palliative care doctor's name was Dr. Goodheart, which is really great. But by the way, he's married to a cantor, and he's Jewish, so you just can't make these things up. So Dr. Goodlev's sitting down with us, and he begins the conversation by pulling out a booklet that Ron had filled out a few months earlier. And the booklet was entitled, What Matters to Me? This is the actual booklet. It asks simple questions. What makes for a good day? What makes for a hard day? And then on page 5, if you become sicker, what matters more to you? The possibility of a longer life or the possibility of a better quality of life? There's a moment in the biblical text, the very end of the Torah, a moment we're going to read tomorrow morning, when the Israelites are on the cusp of entering the land of Israel. They've gone through so much. They're at the end of their journey. And Moses turns to them and Moses says, Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem, all of you stand here today. The rabbis tell us that Moses is saying every Jew who will ever live stood right there. And then speaking in God's voice, Moses says, I have set before you this day life and death. Choose life. The question that my father-in-law was being asked on that form was not merely a medical one. It was a spiritual one. It was bound up with that ancient command spoken thousands and thousands of years ago on the cusp of the Israelites entering a promised land. But what does it mean? What does it mean to choose life? Does it mean that we should just go on living as long as we can? Now, to be clear, many, if not most of us in this congregation, in America, and around the world, are already doing things every single day meant to extend our days by years and years, right? We're exercising, we're taking vitamins, we're doing yoga, we're going to fitness boot camp. In Austin, people seem to be working out 24 hours a day. I see people at the lake at like 1:30 in the afternoon on a Wednesday, and I'm wondering do they work? My mom and dad have been exercising and eating healthy for my entire life. Any meal at a restaurant with my parents is kind of like a George Gershwin duet, where my parents go over the menu and they assess whether something's healthy. And so they say like this, I'm going to perform for you. Should I have the salmon? And then my mother says, yes, have the salmon. Do you think it's healthy? Just don't have the butter. The salmon, no butter, the salmon. And then they look at the waiter and they say, please leave the butter off. My brother and I performed that. And so yes, living healthy is good. But is that what choosing life actually means? Tonight is called Nidre. We're sitting in the sanctuary, we're listening to music that pierces our souls, we're turning inward, confronting all we've done wrong in the past year. Tomorrow we'll chant the words of the Unatana Toka for prayer that asks us who will be here and who won't next year. And then actually imagines the different ways in which people will die. We feel in our bones on this day how fragile and vulnerable we are. But here's the paradox. In the face of this, Yom Kippur does not call on us to beg for more days. Quite the opposite. On this day we fast, we wear white, we abstain from life's pleasures, we literally rehearse our deaths so that we can see clearly that the measure of our lives is not how many days we can squeeze out, but how we fill the days we're given. See, Yom Kippur is not about elongating life. It's about deepening it. In 1938, in the shadow of the Great Depression, on the eve of World War II, a play came out that was different than anything that had shown in theaters before. At the time, theater audiences were used to spectacles. But the author of this play decided that he didn't want to use distractions and illusions. And so he stripped the stage bare. No sets, minimal props, just a stage manager who breaks the fourth wall. Does anybody know the name of the play? It's Our Town, written by Thornton Wilder. The purpose of the play is to remind us that the small, ordinary moments of our lives are the most sacred and meaningful. In the play's final act, a character by the name of Emily is given this one last chance. She's died, and she's given this one last chance to experience life. And she's asked to choose one day to experience, and she chooses her 12th birthday. And she goes and she sees all of the wonderful moments of that day in her life. And she's filled with joy until suddenly she's not. Because she's looking at the people and realizing that they take everything for granted. So she cries out, do any human beings ever realize life while they live it? That is the central question of Yom Kippur. One of the most remarkable truths about my father-in-law was not simply that he loved life. It was also that he taught his children to do the same. A year before we ended up in that hospital room, my wife Shara and her sister Nina, who are watching from Philadelphia right now, decided to help their dad realize life. They didn't add years to Ronnie, but they gave him an experience that deepened the days he had left. They took their dad to Rwanda. For a man who had loved apes and orangutans his entire life, this was the dream of dreams. to trek into the misty mountains, stage 4 cancer, to sit face to face with gorillas in their natural habitat, to beat his chest in joy. It wasn't a medical treatment. It did not add years to his life, but it sanctified the time he had left, deepening it in a way that nothing could. In that journey, Ronnie didn't escape death, but he chose life. Fast forward back to the hospital. There we are. My father-in-law, Dr. Goodlev. And Dr. Goodlev began to read from that pamphlet what Ronnie had written only months earlier. Ron, when we asked you what makes for a good day, you wrote being creative, sculpting pottery, family gatherings, synagogue events. He read how proud Ronnie was of the life he'd lived, of the life he'd given, and the love that he had received. As Dr. Goodlev read, what struck me was that this wasn't a conversation about hospice. This was a conversation about life, about naming what really matters, about choosing what makes our days worth living. My father-in-law, Ron Abraham, died 2 days after that hospital room moment. Hours before he passed, Shara took him outside to sit in the sun with her, to spend time, to realize life, to choose life. Years ago, one of my mom's best friends, who was like another mother to me, found out, like Ronnie, that she had untreatable cancer. Her name was Alona. She was offered treatments that could have extended her life, but she chose not to take them. Regarding her decision, Alona, knowing that I was a rabbi, decided to send me a message. And this is the message she sent. Good morning, Bri. Today, my grandchildren are returning from nearly a month at camp. I can hardly wait to see them. Yesterday, I had a realization I wanted to share with you. When I chose to forego more treatment, friends and family were not happy. They told me that the Jewish way is to choose life. I realized yesterday that by foregoing more treatment, I chose life. I'm now able to look forward to being with my grandkids, to hearing about their camp adventures, to play some board and card games. We can't always judge people's decisions. There are different ways to choose life. I miss Ronnie. I miss Alona, but I'm grateful to them. For in the end, they taught me that choosing life is not about stretching time at any cost. It's about embracing moments in our lives, not missing the beauty that's right in front of us. And that's the question for us tonight. What if we didn't have to wait for this? What if we didn't need to sit in a hospital room to remind ourselves what matters? What if we could ask ourselves right now on this Yom Kippur what truly gives our lives meaning and begin from that place? That's the gift of today. Like the set of our town, Yom Kippur strips life down to its essence. We step away from food, from comfort, from distractions. We stand face to face with our own mortality. Just like Ronnie, just like Alona, just like Emily. But we don't do it to despair. We do it to awaken. May we number our days. May we deepen them. And may we choose again and again life. Shana Tova.